And then I want to talk about what I think really mattered at CES. It was one event, and it was over on the first day, the first morning. So, best of CES, agentic AI and AI agents. Now, agentic AI is kind of mind-boggling, where you just set a task for AI and it does everything involved. And the guy that's been talking about this the most is Eric Schmidt. I saw a speech he gave at Stanford Business School, and I've known Eric forever, and he is a very, very smart guy. And if he sees this in the future, given his long-term connection with running as the chairman of Apple, I'm sorry, Google. Um, this must be something. I'm beginning to hear word on the street from other people saying, once this stuff gets available, we're going to use it. We're going to use it as an employee, a really smart employee, and just say, take on this project, get us into, develop a whole marketing strategy and execute it in this market. That's the dream. Now, will it happen? I don't know, but it's kind of exciting. Hi, and welcome to the Silicon Insider podcast. Hey, Scott,
Hey, Mike, how are you?
it's been a fun time. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
I didn't have to go to CES, did you?
I did not. No, I didn't. And I kind of miss it, but it's always so crowded and crazy. But it's also kind of like a candy store for a tech reporter. There's just so
Yeah,
much there. And it was neat to see what came out of it again this year. We are still an innovation economy, and that feels good.
absolutely. Only 150,000 attendees, so
That still sounds like a lot to me, but
it's got to be hard to get around in that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I always, I always used to go over to the new startup area because I always feel like the next big thing is about to emerge there somewhere amidst all the junk. There's got to be a couple ones that they're going to be the next $1 trillion company.
Yeah, I mean, I think history has proven that that is the case. It's sort of the way I put it is looking at your living room or your gadget future 3 to 4 years ahead,
Yeah,
and eventually a lot of it does rise above and become a product and great. The majority does not, but isn't that
right.
how it is anyway? And so if you're a VC or a reporter or just someone interested in whatever is coming down the pike, this is what you want to see.
Yeah. Okay, well, we got to start first though with TikTok because this is the week. Uh, in theory, TikTok gets shut down. We're talking Thursday late. It's tomorrow, right?
No, it would be Sunday, the 19th.
Okay, we're waiting for the Supreme Court tomorrow.
Right. We may get a Supreme Court ruling, and that would either uphold the ban, which would go into place on the 19th without a
Yeah.
buyer, an American buyer, or, right, put a stay on it, which would potentially, I guess, give TikTok more time to either find a buyer or come up with some sort of a deal, an arrangement. But who knows?
Well, it sounds like there's agreement, amazingly, between both the Biden administration, which only has a couple days left, and the incoming Trump administration. Both of them seem to be wanting, despite what they said in the past, both individuals, now they want to save TikTok. And there's even talk about if the Biden administration may decide now to kick the can down the street, hoping that the Trump administration takes it, and even if the Supreme Court, rules against TikTok, and I'm going to take the side of the Congress, that the Trump administration will not do anything. They'll let it stand and keep TikTok alive. I mean, this is a weird thing, and I'm not sure what the motive is of both administrations. I mean, they made a pretty good case, and Congress investigating made a pretty good case that it's a Chinese listing post. But I think they're hearing from those millions of people out there who aren't just looking at clips on TikTok, they're running businesses on it, and they're screaming right now.
Right. It was for a long time the one issue that united Democrats and Republicans, which was this is a Chinese-owned company. It's dangerous to our young people. It's pumping in propaganda. let's ban it. Everybody was in agreement, at least on the government side. But you're right, 170 million TikTok users, many of whom make good livings on it. I've interviewed many of them recently, and they don't want it to go for obvious reasons. And it's kind of strange, Mike, because I thought that initially this would be a larger issue in the campaign, especially, say, for the Biden administration,
Yeah.
which for obvious reasons had trouble bringing young people to the fold. And I thought, well, if they're pro TikTok, at least they're showing young people that we care about you and your commerce and your interests. And that didn't happen. Both sides were, in lockstep saying this was bad and had to be banned. And so neither side really was able to take advantage of all those users. And now both sides are backing off, saying, well, maybe we can save TikTok. And so the momentum feels like, at least, it's shifting in a direction to favor TikTok. We just heard earlier today the CEO of TikTok would be among those apparently on the podium,
At the
along with Mark
inauguration.
Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. How do you ban a business days after your CEO is on the stand with the president? I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's also the law of unforeseen consequences. I'm not sure anybody thought, okay, we'll get all the kids and everything off of TikTok. And now we're discovering that the kids are all moving to Redbook, which is literally named after Mao Zedong's Little Red Book from the 60s. And it's completely owned by China.
Yeah, it's interesting. The two top apps in the App Store downloads for free for Apple this week are both Chinese-owned social media companies, not TikTok. Lemonade is in the number 2 spot. That's owned by ByteDance, famously a Chinese-owned company. Red Note is the app, also owned by a Chinese company, doing huge business. And it's almost like those users are saying, hey, we're going to thumb our noses at the American alternatives. If you're
Yeah.
going to ban our Chinese-owned company, we're going to go to another one. That seems to be a short-term solution because if TikTok is banned, Red Note and Lemonade don't get to stay either.
Yeah, because they're conceivably they're even more egregious about information gathering.
I mean, that's what we don't know, right? Is how much information is being gathered. And that's why ByteDance, which owns TikTok, is a big mystery. They can insist that the Chinese government does not have access to TikTok's data, but we don't know because
Right.
it's a different sort of animal. So, I think the idea that maybe it's the algorithms or whatever it is that draws people to these Chinese-owned apps is something that should be studied,
Yeah.
perhaps instead of just shunned because they're onto something.
What about the stories I keep hearing that various consortia and individuals in the US are thinking about buying TikTok from ByteDance? Is there any movement on that? I mean, I hear Elon's going to do it. I hear it's a guy, yeah, one of the TV guys, and another consortium somewhere else. Are they going to come in at the 11th hour and see if they can get a deal?
My guess is that there is some maneuvering going on. My question would be, how come it hasn't happened yet? But right, you mentioned Elon. I don't think the FTC would
Well,
let
there's
him.
no way the FCC is going to
Right.
allow him to buy, TikTok too.
Right. And then you have Frank McCourt. My wild card sort of white knight in all this, since the beginning has been Larry Ellison. I mean, Oracle has a stake. Ellison has more money than he's ever had, and he doesn't have a
Right.
job. So why not? He could be a hero. It would be a legacy move. He still has generational wealth, obviously. But that hasn't happened either. I wouldn't be surprised, except for the fact that it's up to ByteDance, which is a Chinese company that is perhaps affiliated with the Chinese government. Maybe they just don't want to give this up because it is worth so much money
Yeah.
and
Money machine.
potentially, yeah, so much intellectual property that maybe they just don't want to give it up for whatever the price. And that is obviously a big stumbling block. So I thought there might be a deal at this point, but it would really be a last minute thing now.
Yeah, well, and why give it up now when you got the incoming president, arm in arm with the outgoing president, saying, "Oh no, never mind, guys, stick around. We like you."
Right. And that's what's interesting is that the tide has really turned and the momentum has shifted. And maybe if you're TikTok, you just wait this out a bit and something happens to save you and keep you around.
Okay, let's talk about a very interesting item in the New York Times that is part of what seems like a story, which is crypto. That and we've seen how interested President Bush is. Bush, good. I'm getting old. President Trump is about crypto, and now there's talk that the current administration may want to create a a full-blown federal stockpile of crypto. So literally like Fort Knox, except it would be crypto. And this week, crypto's been going through the roof. They're all optimistic with the new administration. They think because the Biden administration wasn't real friendly for the most part about Bitcoin and all the rest, and they were debanking them. They weren't able to work with the banks on all this. And by all indications, the Trump administration is just embracing this industry. What do you think? I mean, does it make it less frothy?
Well, I mean, the price has gone up by like $30,000 a coin since
Yeah.
the election, so that's pretty frothy. But there is something to this now, I think, whereas I think you're right, the Biden administration kind of fought against the momentum that Bitcoin had, and for understandable reasons, it's still very speculative. But when you have someone in office who's not only supporting it for his own benefit, I mean, he was just trying to bring Trump, that is, voters into the fold, but more importantly and more wisely, putting people that are younger and hipper and understand this stuff, your David Sacks's kind of thing, into positions where they control some of this, at least as much as a government can, I think is a very wise move. And, no matter what you talk about, whether a Bitcoin ETF or some sort of a government place and exchange, I think it legitimizes the future of Bitcoin, especially. And so, yeah, you're getting all these ridiculous coins because everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, but a lot of them are worthless and people are losing money. But those who have bought and held Bitcoin for a long time are really seeing their investment pay off because you have essentially the backing of the federal government, which ironically is what those guys didn't want in the first place many
Right.
years ago.
Right.
So it really has come
And
kind of
it
full
was
circle.
greater to get out of the government oversight. And now, if you got the government creating giant reserves of it, it becomes a pseudo real currency,
Right. There's a lot of
sovereign,
irony here.
sovereign currency.
Right. It's very ironic. But look, if you take your irony with a side of dollar signs, you're not complaining.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. I wish I'd bought it way back when, but I think a lot of people feel that way. Okay. Next, did you see what Mark Zuckerberg did?
Yeah, it's
You
been a
know,
big week for watching what Mark Zuckerberg did. Yes.
yes. I mean, okay. So I remember Siebel Systems got into a lot of trouble when a Fortune magazine article ran and said that they regularly lay off the lowest performing 10% of their employees once a year. Okay, and everybody said, well, we do that too, but we don't talk about it. So Meta now comes out and announces it's going to eliminate 5% of its low performance. But here's the thing. It was described as the people being laid off were described as non-regrettable attrition. Now, I mean, that's kind of adding insult to injury, I would think, and not exactly a great PR thing. And those people who are being laid off, I mean, what do you think? I mean, if I'm going for a job and they look me up and oh, you were laid off from Meta, so you're not regrettable. Your departure was not regrettable. They were happy to lose you. That's quite a scarlet letter to hang around your your former employees as they go out into the world. And boy, if any of them are going to get revenge, it's going to be those guys over time.
Well, this was sort of the GE model as far as, taking your employees and putting them in various groups and sort of, trimming the fat. It's hard. 5% of Meta is a lot of people. This is a company that's firing on all cylinders. It's making record revenue. Its stock price is hitting all-time highs. So why do you announce a 5% cut? I mean, we're also in this age inspired by what Musk did at Twitter of just really getting rid of a lot of workers and still making it work. And tech
Yeah.
has been that way. Tech has
The
become
James L. Dunlap model.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chainsaw Hell. And, it is now something you just understand in tech that you can both be fabulously successful and still cutting workers. And that's a
No,
tough reality.
I understand that. And, I wish the federal government was had the same policy. But do you really call people non-regrettable as you send them out the door with their cardboard boxes full of their desk stuff?
I mean, this is absolutely par for the course for Mark Zuckerberg
Yeah.
to seem tone deaf, to offend a lot of people when it's not necessary to do so. The things he's been saying about Sheryl Sandberg are disturbing to those of us who knew how important Sheryl Sandberg was to Facebook. He just doesn't care about throwing anybody and
Yeah.
everybody in his way under the bus. And he's trying to befriend MAGA, which hates him. This is going to be an interesting year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Money cleans a lot of whatevers because they certainly have a lot of it.
Yeah, well, he may look like a 1980s Sunset Strip playa nowadays, but it's the same old Mark inside. Kind of cold-blooded and
Yeah,
not really doesn't really play well with others.
I agree.
Okay, next, stocks this week. Boy, the big seven in tech got hurt. They had a great beginning of the week, and then just today, as we're talking, Apple down 4%, Google down 1.35, Tesla down 3.36%, Nvidia down 2%. Only Microsoft did slightly better than the declining Nasdaq. Is this because of quarterly earnings announcements? Is it profit taking in the new year?
No, it's not earning time. I think when you're in the $3 trillion range, you're just going to see big moves. And this is not for the faint of heart. And I think these stocks are being lumped together. I mean, Apple, Nvidia, Tesla had a rough day. Those are the big guys. But boy, did chip equipment stocks soar. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the overall market is doing one thing or another, or even tech, but these sectors, whether it's quantum or AI, we're seeing big moves day by day, depending on what people say, depending on what way the wind blows and how people are feeling. China is playing a big role. That's why Apple fell on Thursday. And so there are all these factors that keep you on your toes if you're going to play this market with individual stocks. It's a moneymaker in the long term. Boy, has it been. But day by day, you're going to see some big moves.
So do you think they're benefiting, but also being punished by being lumped together as, the big seven in tech? Because they don't have a whole lot in common with each other in many departments. I mean, and to have them all move together forward or backwards is kind of a new phenomenon. This
Yeah,
is
and
in the last 6 months or so.
I think that's a very fair point, and it seems that way. And I would say the same about the chip stocks or even the quantum stocks. Jensen Huang says something about quantum, and they all drop. And some of them are saying, "Wait a minute, he said we'd be making money in 20 years. We're selling things today. What is, the other guys are not doing it today." And so you get this sort of back and forth where people don't want to be lumped together unless it's a big momentum move like it was with AI. And then everybody's like, hey, throw me in with NVIDIA, throw me in with AMD, throw
Right.
me in with Broadcom. Until you're super micro and then you're like, hey, I'm not part of that anymore. So it works until it doesn't. But because of what you just said, and yeah, the fair or unfair grouping of companies together, we're going to see some moves in lockstep. And maybe these companies don't deserve those moves and so you have to be extra careful.
Okay, let's do a quick debrief because CES was last week. Ran for 3 days, drew 150,000 visitors to Las Vegas to the usual big show. And I wanted to kind of go over what people are saying are the best things about CES. And then I want to talk about what I think really mattered at CES. It was one event and it was over on the first day, the first morning. So, best of CES. agentic AI and AI agents. Now, agentic AI is kind of mind-boggling, where you just set a task for AI and it does everything involved. And the guy that's been talking about this the most is Eric Schmidt. I saw a speech he gave at Stanford Business School, and I've known Eric forever, and he is a very, very smart guy. And if he sees this in the future, given his, long-term connection with running as the, chairman of Apple, I'm sorry, Google, um, this must be something. I'm beginning to hear word on the street from other people saying, once this stuff gets available, we're going to use it. We're going to use it as an employee, a really smart employee, and just say, take on this project, get us into, develop a whole marketing strategy and execute it in this market. That's the dream. Now, will it happen? I don't know, but it's kind of exciting. Meanwhile, I don't know about you, but I unconsciously use AI every day on my Google searches. Putting in queries. I mean, it's a low grade AI, but boy, it's efficient. And it gives me a lot of stuff, especially because I'm writing a book and I need to get background on something. This thing it prepares something for me in 2 seconds. And it's transforming the way I work. And it's so embedded in Google, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's being used, but I guess that's a personal consumer use. But you're writing a book, you're a professional. I just don't know that this is yet something in our daily lives as
Yeah, probably
consumers.
not. But you can see
And
how it's kind of coming in sub rosa,
right.
that you're starting to use it, you don't even know it. It's not intimidating yet. Okay, some of the other products. The psionic ability hand, that's kind of remarkable. It's actually not only, it's kind of like a science fiction story or a horror story, but it's actually an artificial hand that has AI. So it starting to think by itself, which does sound like a horror film, but it's probably a miracle. Non-invasive glucose monitor, that's the dream of generations, to be able to look at blood sugar without having to stab yourself, which I'm at the age where I have to do that. Uh, some of these new robots are incredibly humanoid. Uh, we're getting very close to that horror movie where we're inhabiting a world where it's hard to tell between people and robots. An AI house, multitasking household robot that will do everything, vacuum the floor and wash the floor and wax the floor and check the refrigerator and all that. And then you saw that Roomba with the robot arm that
Yep.
picks up stuff and gets it out of the way. Uh, One of the hottest things there was, I read this everywhere, every roundup story around the world. The electric salt spoon. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Has low grade electrical charge in it, and it can actually duplicate the taste of salt, so you don't have that much in your diet.
Yep.
That's such a stupid product, and yet weirdly sublime, and it'll probably sell millions.
Yeah, it might. And between that and sort of the health monitor stuff, I think there is something to this. And I don't know if that's exactly what will be eventually in our kitchens, but
Yeah.
it's again something just a few years ahead of its time that we'll eventually use, probably.
Well, I've seen some mobile health monitors out there that have not surfaced yet. They're still under the radar that are mind-boggling. Yeah. Like things that talk to your brain literally through your nerve system. Um, New electric farm vehicles. I guess EV is really coming to agriculture. And one of the sounded silly, but it'll probably be hugely popular too, the smart pillow.
They've had smart pillows for a long time. I mean, they've tried.
They've advanced.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. What I thought was the single most important moment happened in literally the first hour of CES, and that was Jensen Huang's uh, keynote to kick off CES. Did I hear properly that he's talking about a $3,000 personal computer with an NVIDIA chip in it? That it would be literally a $3,000 personal supercomputer?
Right. And that's where the NVIDIA technology, the AI would eventually come home.
Yeah.
It makes sense for NVIDIA because they really took their speed and graphics processing and all that to video games. And I think that's part of what this would be used for. And then the personal side of this, if you believe that AI is going to get personal, might come from a personal computer. Now, this is an expensive computer, but right, the speed and the super calculations and all that stuff that AI would give you, I agree that it was a big, big
It's
announcement.
mind-boggling. It made my
Yeah.
hair stand on end. And $3,000, if he's really, it will probably be 4,500 because of the way the world works. But even a 45, you know how much I paid for my Apple III? $5,000. And if I wanted to get 10 megabytes of memory, it was another $5,000. So this is a steal if he can pull this off. This is world changing, just as the Apple computer was originally, the Apple II. This could transform everything. When you put that much processing power and intelligence in the hands of billions of average people, something fundamental is going to change for humankind.
Agree.
Okay, and finally, Tesla is throttling down its Cybertruck production as it shifts workers to Model Y production. Apparently, they're getting a lot of backup of a lot of inventory of the Cybertrucks, and they decided to shift manufacturing over to the Series Y, which is interesting because everywhere I look now, I see a Cybertruck. What was a novelty 6, 7 months ago, even in Silicon Valley, you don't even look twice anymore. There's one sitting beside you every time you stop at a light. It's quite amazing.
Right, but that's largely Silicon Valley. We do see a lot of cyber trucks
Yeah.
here, but pay attention. We see 20, 30, 40 times the Model Ys. That's the top seller. Not just the top EV, but one of the top selling cars. And
But when I say I end up next to a Cybertruck at the stoplight, I'm also have 400
right,
Series Ys around me.
right.
Yeah. So is this a augury of something that the bloom is off the rose with the Cybertruck and people are getting more pragmatic that, it's not really a pickup truck. You can't just, throw a dead deer in the back of your Cybertruck. But Series Y is very practical. It's priced right. It's got a good battery in it. The build is getting better.
Yeah,
What do
I mean, the Cybertruck always felt a bit novelty. The fact that it did sell out of the gate was surprising and impressive, and we do see a lot of them around here at least. But right, it feels and looks more like just a big, I don't know, SUV on steroids than a regular truck. And it'll be interesting. I'm always wondering what truck people do. Do they buy the Rivian if they go EV? Do they buy a Cybertruck? Do they go for a Ford? I mean, the Cybertruck's outselling all of those, but it's feels like a niche, and maybe that's its long-term destiny.
Okay. Well, folks, that's it. You can find us on Spotify. Well, you know where to find us: Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can see Scott on Facebook and X, and of course, almost every weeknight on NBC Bay Area. And if you were around during Christmas holidays, you saw a lot of Scott. He was on almost continuously. And you can hear me regularly on the BBC radio show Business Matters. I'm going to start doing it every other week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.